Welcome to r/slash Pettyrevenge, where OP costs his trashy neighbors $100,000. Our next Reddit post is from Killjoy. My neighbors have 9 cars total parked in the street. What? They always park 2 cars in front of my house and won't move them the whole week. We have a regulation where you live that you can't leave your car parked for more than 48 hours in the same spot. My neighbors have a pretty big driveway where they can fit 4 cars, but it's always empty. They've told me they don't like to fill their driveway with cars because it looks tacky. Over half the cars they have, they don't even use. They just use them to save parking spots for themselves. In 2021, I noticed they were building a second unit in the back of their main house. I noticed they completed the house in under a month. This raised some red flags because it takes anywhere from 2 to 3 months with city inspections taking the majority of the time. I submitted a ticket with my city through the app, and I told them that there might be some illegal residential building without permits. I didn't think much of it until a year later. I noticed my neighbors tearing down their second unit last week. Word got around our block that a city inspector was there making sure everything was being torn down. Based on what they spent on materials and labor that they put into their second unit, I cost them over $100,000. OP, I don't know if you're like a billionaire, but for the rest of us, $100,000 is not a petty amount of money. $100,000 is like a pro-revenge amount of money. Our next Reddit post is from Deleted. After 5 years of marriage and endless false promises, I finally got my personal revenge. My ex-husband and I got married in 2017 after 1 year of long-distance relationship between the US and Germany. We sealed the deal, got married in the US, and he wanted me to live with him in the good old US of A because he didn't want to learn another language. To make things easier, he moved in with me in Germany for a job that I helped him get. That way, we could have time to finalize my plans for immigration. Now, my ex didn't even bother starting to gather all the required documents for himself to be my sponsor. By then, I had all my documents sorted out, canceled all my contracts, sold my belongings, sent large portions of my things to the US, and said goodbye to my lovely home, friends, and family. Little did I know, my ex-husband didn't do a single bit of research or even do his part for my immigration process. So I wasn't even able to set foot on the plane that would bring me to my new home. Long story short, he left to the US without me. Meanwhile, I was homeless with a suitcase and 2 cats. He continued to lead me on with promises to come get me. Meanwhile, he started a polyamorous affair. Later, he got involved with a 21-year-old young lady. I lived with my parents for a few months to get back on my feet, find a new apartment, and a new source of income. Now, I never went to German officials to get our marriage recognized in Germany, mostly because I didn't think that it was necessary because we planned to live together in the US. But my laziness would prove useful later. Since he was with his new 21-year-old girlfriend, I broke up the relationship and focused on myself, regaining my independence and rebuilding my life in my home country. I fell in love with an acquaintance that I've known for 13 years, and we soon found that we have very much the same goals in life and the very same ideals and wishes for a monogamous life. Meanwhile, I've been in contact with my ex to finally get him to start the divorce process in the US. I didn't want my name to be further affiliated with him, and I also didn't see the reason why he should further profit from tax benefits. I made it clear that I did not want this anymore, and I wanted to move on. Finally, he got the process started, and he forgot one simple thing. I am not an American citizen. So everything that applies in the US when it comes to paperwork doesn't apply to me in Germany. Do you want to serve me via email? Nope. Want me to sign something electronically? Nope, not possible. All he would have to do is send me notarized, signed, and translated paperwork via physical mail, but he wouldn't. So I get email after email with him begging me to sign the US divorce papers electronically. With every email his lawyer sends me, his lawyer bills ramp up. Now, don't get me wrong, I certainly told the lawyer what he has to do to get me to sign a legally significant piece of paper, but I guess he doesn't understand international laws. So at this point, my ex still has all of my belongings that I sent to the US. I asked him to send them back to me, and since he won't do that, I'll just keep collecting spam emails from his lawyer. That's my personal revenge for him leading me on, for him using my hopelessly romantic heart and leaving me alone when things went hard. I don't count as being married to him in Germany, and I'm currently expecting a little baby boy with my partner, and we're building a life together without false promises. OP, by the sound of things, that 21-year-old girlfriend is now trying to become a fiance, but she can't because she's dating a married man. Oh well, I guess the happy couple can't get married. Our next Reddit post is from Denise the Nephew. So back in June, I left a very toxic workplace of 8 years. I mainly left due to having a breakdown from being overworked. But this one particular person made working there even worse on top of the excessive work. This guy was 1 year younger than me. He was a 30-year-old man, the type of guy that appears to have peaked in high school. Very jock-like mentality, and childish too. He was part of my team of 4 people. I was civil with him just because I had to work with him, but he was my workplace bully. Apart from just the general workplace banter, this guy Chris was relentless with his teasing. What would usually be classified as playful always pushed to bullying with him because he never knew when to quit. And if he noticed that you were getting stressed or annoyed, he would target you with his teasing for the rest of the day. He would be super nice to you when it's just the two of you, but as soon as he had an audience, he would pick a victim and tease them constantly. And if he ever got annoyed and stood up for yourself, he'd say that he was only messing around and make it out like he's the victim. He's that type of person. One specific thing he did that made me absolutely lose any respect I had for him was when I was still working there, some ex-employee wrote a very aggressive and angry review on Glassdoor about the company. Just because this person used a phrase that I use, Chris thought the review was me. I tried to prove that it wasn't me, but he relentlessly campaigned around the office that I was the one who wrote it. I also believe that he told my boss that I was the one who wrote the review after I left, and as a result, I didn't get any freelance work from them afterwards. So after I left my workplace, my old team still has a group WhatsApp that I'm part of, and we still talk there almost every other day. After I left, the group chat went a bit quiet. I assume they made a new one with just them, which is fair. But still, they would occasionally post in the old group. I unfollowed and unfriended Chris on Facebook and Instagram because I just didn't want to be associated with them anymore. In the middle of the group chat, Chris broadcasts, "Why'd you unfollow and unfriend me on Facebook?" while adding me. He wrote the message at 6:30 a.m. I woke up to this message broadcasted in the group chat, and it pissed me off. So I was honest and said that he's a bully, and instead of making a big thing of it, I would rather just remove him from the equation. I also said that it was immature of him to do this over group chat and not in private. He didn't say anything. He just left the group chat and blocked me on everything. The group chat pretty much died after that. At the time, I was livid. This 30-year-old man set fire to the group chat, saw what I said, and then ran away. I thought that it must be a blessing in disguise because I finally got to say what I wanted to him, and now I never have to acknowledge him again. But I was wrong. Skip to 3 months later. Me and my husband were walking through town, stopping off at a pub to get some food. And lo and behold, I see Chris there with a new girl that I hadn't seen before. I was feeling extra confident and decided to approach. I went and said, "Hey Chris, long time no see," with a big grin on my face. Chris looked like a deer in headlights and was blushing. I asked him, "How are things? You doing well?" And he replied in a very normal way, clearly not wanting the conversation to continue and looking super awkward in front of his new girl. She asked how we knew each other. I generously waited for Chris to say, "We used to work together." So I added, "Yeah, it's quite funny, really. Chris used to be my workplace bully. He's the reason why I struggled financially after I left my old job. Because he accused me of writing a hostile review to the company, which I proved that I didn't, and it lost me a lot of freelance work because of it. He was gobsmacked. His face was redder than a traffic light. His new girl clearly looked confused and uncomfortable. Neither of them responded. I didn't want to carry on much longer because it wasn't really fair on the girl. But just to add salt to the wound, I said, "So, is this your new girlfriend, Catherine? Or is this Georgia? What happened with Sarah, since someone said you were still with her last week?" And by the way, all of that was completely true. This girl goes from confused to angry in the blink of an eye and just stares at Chris. I just say, "Oh, whoops, I really put my foot in my mouth, haven't I? I better go. It was nice seeing you again, Chris," and walked off. My husband felt bad for the girl, and I did too. But he was very proud that I finally got my closure revenge on Chris. It feels amazing, like I feel super petty, but it felt good to there finally being some consequences to Chris being a dick. Down in the comments, we have a similar story from Important Scary. When I was 16, I worked at a fast food place. My new manager hated me because the owner wanted to train me as a shift manager. When I came into work one day, she handed me a bucket and a toothbrush and told me to scrub the entire floor, including pulling all the equipment out. I said, "No way, I'll mop, but I'm not going to use a toothbrush." She knew that I was a young mom and kept bullying me, saying that I had no choice. Peace out, B-word, I quit. Cut to 7 years later, and she comes to interview at my new professional job. She saw me, and all the color drained from her face. The interviewer said, "Oh, you guys know each other?" She tried to act like my best friend. When she left, the interviewer came to me and asked if she was a good employee. I told her what happened, and she did not get the job. F you, Christy, you deserved it. Our next Reddit post is from Rodeo Pete. I recently bought a house, and I've been having some work done before I move in. It was empty on the market for about 6 or 8 months before I bought it. One morning, I got a call from my contractor asking me to move the cars in the driveway, and of course, I have no idea what he's talking about. I hadn't even moved in yet. I left work and drove nearly an hour to get there. As soon as I arrived, my neighbors were walking towards the cars. I asked if these cars were theirs, and they said yes. They told me they'd been parking there for a few months with permission from the owners. I informed them I was the owner and they could no longer park there. We went back and forth, and with the intention of being a good neighbor and trying to show some goodwill, I agreed to allow them to park there for a few more weeks until I moved in, with the agreement that they would move them by 6 a.m. every morning. The rest of the week went by without incident. The contractor called me about scheduling a walkthrough on Saturday, and we set a time for early afternoon. When I arrived, there were 4 cars in the driveway and nowhere to park. The only on-street parking was 2 blocks away. I called them and asked them to move their vehicles, reminding them of our agreement. About 20 minutes later, they finally came out and moved them. After speaking with them, they claimed to have misunderstood and thought that our agreement only referred to weekdays, not weekends. I corrected them and moved on. Sunday morning, I grabbed a trailer and loaded up some furniture to take over and store in the garage. Once again, there were cars in my driveway. I called them and got voicemail. I texted them and said they had until a tow truck could arrive to get them moved. No answer, so I called a tow company. 45 minutes later, 2 tow trucks showed up, backed in, and hooked up to the cars. All of a sudden, the neighbors were home. They ran out to stop their cars from being towed, and it ended up costing them a little over $300 to get them unhooked. I called my contractor and asked if he knew someone who could put in a driveway gate, and he did. I let the neighbors know that they could no longer use my driveway. On Wednesday, I get a call from the gate installer telling me that there are cars in the driveway. I called them and said that tow trucks are on the way. They moved their cars. The gate was installed, and I went by to pick up the opener that evening. The neighbor's husband came out to confront me, and I opted to just call the cops and deal with it legally. That Saturday, I went by to accept an outdoor furniture delivery and check on things. That's when I noticed a towel beside my pool and a small kid's flotation device. My initial thought was that I just hadn't noticed it before, so I wrote it off and threw the stuff in the trash. On Saturday, the movers arrived with everything and we began moving things in. At 7 p.m., my daughter and I left to go grab some dinner, arriving back to the house around 9:30 p.m. The neighbors were in my swimming pool. They were hanging out and using my furniture. When I opened the door and began raising hell, they told the kids to go to the house and the children ran to the corner of our fence and just walked through. They had cut a hole in my privacy fence so it could be removed, and they had been using my pool at their leisure for who knows how long. Again, I called the cops and filed a complaint. I replaced the fence with a new one because they destroyed the posts, runners, and pickets by removing and reinstalling the panel. Small Claims Court awarded me the total cost of a privacy fence, which came out to $3,800. I haven't been paid yet, but I did notice a for rent sign in their yard this morning, so that's just as good. I'm trying to figure out if these neighbors are inconsiderate, trashy, or just plain stupid. Because, if you park your car in someone else's driveway and then they tow it and cost you $300, why on earth would you do it again? I can't believe that the second time that happened, OP had the courtesy to call the neighbors and tell them again that he's calling a tow truck. If it were me, I would have just called the tow truck again and let them learn another $300 lesson. That was r/Pettyrevenge, and if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.